Your brother's twice the man you'll ever dream of being. My dad sneered. I said, cool. Then he can cover you. When the truth came out, the golden child collapsed. My parents crumbled, and I walked away stronger. Hey, Reddit. I'm Mitchell, 32 male, have kept this story to myself, but it still feels unreal. My family always played favorites, leaving me stuck cleaning up the mess. Then a dinner confrontation changed everything, flipping our dynamic in ways I never expected. Thought I'd share because some of you will probably relate more than you'd like to admit. Friday nights at my parents' house were basically mandatory roll call. Didn't matter if you were sick, working, or had actual plans. You were expected at the table. Family tradition, Dad always called it, though in reality it was just another excuse for him to brag about Simon. When I pulled into the driveway that night, Simon's shiny new truck was parked front and center like it was a showroom piece. Jet black, chrome trim, leather interior. I didn't even have to step inside to know it was decked out with every upgrade. The kind of truck guys buy when they're trying to compensate for something. Inside, Mom was glowing before I could even take off my jacket. Isn't it gorgeous? She said, practically bouncing. Your father made sure Simon had something reliable. It's an investment. Reliable? I muttered. Pretty sure that thing comes with heated cup holders and a massaging seat. Must be crucial for hauling groceries. Simon grinned, leaning back like he'd just signed a billion-dollar contract. It's in my name, he said, like he was giving a TED talk. Dad wanted company image, so he told me to finance the truck and he'd reimburse me as a vehicle stipend. You can't pull up to clients in a rust bucket, Dad chimed in proudly. Image matters, Mitchell. Simon's stepping up. Clients need to see confidence, success. I glanced out the window at my sedan parked at the curb. 10 years old, paint fading, still ran fine. Guess image only mattered when Simon was the one behind the wheel. Dinner rolled on. Mom serving casserole. Dad pouring himself another tall glass of authority. Simon soaking up every compliment like he'd just discovered fire. I sat in my usual spot, stabbing green beans and keeping my mouth shut. Sometimes silence was safer, but Dad was on a roll that night. Simon's already landed 2 new contracts this month, he boomed. Clients trust him. He's got presence. He's becoming a real leader. Yeah, I said dryly. Truck probably helps. Nobody laughed. Mom shot me her patented be polite glare. Simon smirked wider. Dad kept going, voice swelling like he was delivering a keynote speech. When I was his age, I didn't have half the drive. He's setting the bar for this family. The bar. Always Simon's bar. Mine was apparently somewhere under the table, next to the dog's food bowl. I bit my tongue, but the knot in my stomach kept tightening. I'd heard this speech 100 times. Simon the prodigy. Simon the heir apparent. Simon the man. Meanwhile, I was just the dependable background character. Quiet, reliable, invisible. We were halfway through the main course when it happened. Dad set his fork down with that dramatic clink he loved, like he was about to announce the next president. Instead, he looked straight at me and dropped the line that's been burned into my brain ever since. Your brother's twice the man you'll ever dream of being. The table froze. Even Simon blinked, like he hadn't expected Dad to go nuclear mid-dinner. For a second, I thought I misheard. But nope. He was sitting there, chin high, waiting for me to swallow it like I always did. And something in me just snapped. I leaned back in my chair, calm as ever, and said, "Then he can start paying your mortgage." The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Mom's face drained like someone had unplugged her. Simon's smirk faltered. Dad's jaw tightened. Mortgage? Mom whispered, blinking like she'd just heard me speak a foreign language. Yeah, I said casually, pushing my plate forward. You know, the mortgage I've been covering for the last few years? If Simon's the man of the house, he can handle it now. Simon's fork clattered. Wait, what? You've been paying their mortgage? Dad's voice came out low and sharp. Mitchell, that's enough. But I wasn't done. My heart was pounding, but my mouth stayed steady. Sarcastic. Funny, right? 3 years of bank transfers, and somehow I'm still the backup son. Guess heated cup holders get more applause than actual responsibility. Mom looked like she might faint. Simon looked like someone had just had his trophy yanked out of his hands. Dad's face was redder than the casserole topping. Highly inappropriate, he snapped. Whatever you've contributed was appreciated, but throwing it in our faces? I laughed, short and sharp. Throwing it in your face? Dad, I've been paying the bills you couldn't cover while Simon was out test-driving leather seats. Forgive me if I don't feel like applauding his leadership. Simon puffed up, voice rising. Hey, I work hard. I earned that truck. I raised an eyebrow. Sure you did. By showing up at Dad's company every morning and getting a promotion for it. Must be exhausting. That landed. Simon flushed. Mom gasped. Dad slammed his palm on the table so hard the dishes rattled. You will not disrespect your brother at this table. Disrespect? I leaned forward, voice low but calm. I'm not disrespecting him. I'm pointing out reality. I've been propping up this house while he plays Golden Boy. And somehow I'm the disappointment? Yeah, makes total sense. Mom tried her gentle voice, the one that always felt like nails on a chalkboard. Mitchell, you've always been so sensitive. You know we love you just as much. I pushed my chair back and stood. Save it. I get it now. Simon's the man. I'm the help. Thanks for clarifying. No one moved. No one spoke. Simon stared at his plate. Mom looked frozen. Dad glared like he could kill me with his eyes. I grabbed my jacket, slung it over my shoulder, and headed for the door. Just before I stepped out, I turned back and smirked. Enjoy the truck. Hope it's good at hauling mortgages. Then I left. The night air hit me like a slap, but it felt clean, honest. For once, I hadn't swallowed it. I hadn't played the quiet background role. I'd said it, right there at the table, and the look on their faces told me they weren't ready for it. Driving away, I glanced in the rearview mirror at the glowing outline of Simon's truck in the driveway. Shiny, powerful, sitting there like a trophy. But all I could think was, let's see how far it gets him when the bills come due. Because starting tonight, I was done being their safety net. 2. At least, that's what I told myself driving home. The truth? I'd been their safety net for so long, I didn't even realize how deep I was tangled in their mess. It didn't start because I was generous or stupid. It started because they begged. And when I say begged, I mean full-on, middle-of-the-night, pathetic phone calls. 3 years back, I was just settling into bed when Dad called. His voice was shaking, which was already weird because the man normally talks like he's narrating a war documentary. He didn't waste time. Mitchell, we're short this month. Bank's calling. If we miss another payment, we could lose the house. I remember sitting up, staring at the ceiling. I'd been living frugally, putting money aside for my own place. But the thought of my parents losing their house? That hit me in the gut. I'll cover it, I said, almost without thinking. The relief in his voice was instant. Just for this month, son. Just until we recover. You'll get every cent back, I promise. And that's how it started. 1 month turned into 3. 3 turned into a year. Every time I thought I could stop, the begging would start again. Dad sending late-night texts like, son, just one more time. We'll be back on our feet soon. It was so pathetic, it almost made me feel guilty for even considering saying no. And I guess part of me thought, maybe this was my role. Be the reliable one. The one who handled things while Simon got applause for breathing. Pathetic, I know, but that was then. Tonight, leaving that dinner, something inside me shifted. I wasn't their safety net anymore. Or so I thought. The next week, I decided to check my finances. Not just bank statements, my whole file. Call it paranoia, call it curiosity. I wanted to see exactly how much I'd funneled into their house. That's when I saw it. Buried in my credit report was a loan I didn't remember taking out. At first, I thought it was fraud, like some stranger stole my identity. But the lender? It was the same bank that held my parents' mortgage. My stomach dropped. I dug deeper. 3 years ago, right around when Dad first called me, the mortgage had been refinanced. And there it was. My name on the paperwork, complete with a shaky version of my signature I never wrote. They hadn't just begged me to help. They'd forged me into it, used my credit and identity without even asking. The only reason I never caught it sooner was because I'd been sending money every month anyway. The amounts lined up, so I never thought twice. All the bank mail went straight to their address, and I wasn't exactly checking my credit report for fun. Turns out, when they filed the refinance, they even listed their house as my mailing address, so every letter with my name on it went straight to their mailbox instead of mine. But staring at it now, it was obvious. My name, my credit, my signature. Only problem? I never signed a thing. I just sat there staring at the screen, jaw tight. They hadn't just begged me to help. They'd literally roped me in legally, without even telling me. Every payment, every risk, every hit to my credit, all tied directly to me. And then it hit me like a brick. That flashy truck Simon was parading around in? I can't prove it, but the timing of that refinancing lines up a little too perfectly. My good credit, my sacrifice, my blind trust, turned into leather seats and a shiny paint job for the golden child. I wasn't just a safety net. I was the foundation, and they'd built their little golden boy castle on top of me without a second thought. By the time I drove over to their house that weekend, I wasn't angry. Not the yelling kind anyway. I was calm. Cold. The kind of calm that makes people nervous. Mom answered the door with her fake, cheery voice. Mitchell! What a nice surprise. Yeah, I said, brushing past her. We need to talk. Dad was in the living room, watching TV with Simon sprawled on the couch like a king. Perfect. All three of them in one room. I didn't sit. I pulled the papers out of my folder and dropped them on the coffee table. Explain. Dad frowned. What's this? Don't play dumb. That's the refinance agreement, the one with my name on it. Simon sat up, squinting. Wait, you co-signed their mortgage? I laughed, sharp and humorless. No, genius. Dad forged my signature. Big difference. Mom's face drained of color. Mitchell, your dad was probably desperate. The bank wouldn't approve him a loan. You're young. You have good credit. Good credit I built myself, I cut in. Credit I was saving to buy my own place. Instead, he used it to lock me into his sinking ship. And what did I get in return? A pat on the head and a lecture about not measuring up to Mr. Truck payments over there. Simon bristled. Hey, don't drag me into this. I didn't know. I turned to him, smirking. Oh, I'm sure you didn't ask too many questions when you got handed a brand new truck. Don't worry, big brother. I'll connect the dots for you. Dad finally spoke, voice low and defensive. I did what I had to do to protect the family home. You should be proud to step up. It shows you're responsible. Proud? I leaned forward, hands on the table. You forged me into debt and called it responsibility. You didn't ask. You didn't even tell me. You just decided my future wasn't mine anymore. Mom's voice cracked, trying for sympathy. We only did it because you're strong enough. Simon's still finding his path. There it is again, I said, laughing coldly. The golden boy excuse. You handed him a truck while I covered your mortgage. You tied my name to your debt while he got promotions for showing up. And you have the nerve to call me half a man? Simon muttered. You're overreacting. I turned to him, eyes locked. No, Simon. You're just underachieving. Big difference. The room went silent. Dad's jaw flexed. Mom blinked back tears. Simon looked like he wanted to melt into the couch. I straightened, gathering my folder. Here's the deal. I'm done. No more payments. No more safety net. You wanted Simon to be the man? Congratulations. Let him figure it out. And with that, I walked out. This time, I didn't even bother with a parting line. I didn't need one. The look on their faces, shocked, cornered, exposed, that was enough. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't just reacting to their games. I was taking control. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. 3. The more I stared at those forged papers, the calmer I got. Not because I wasn't angry, I was furious, but because the anger had shifted into something colder, sharper. I wasn't going to yell at them again. I wasn't going to waste my breath in their kitchen while Simon smirked like he'd won some kind of contest. Number. This time, I was going to play it smarter. The next morning, I called a lawyer. I didn't sugarcoat anything. I laid it out just like it was. My parents refinanced their mortgage 3 years ago. My name is on the paperwork. My signature is forged. And I never gave permission. I half expected the guy to laugh, like this was too messy for him to bother with. But he didn't laugh. He leaned back, tapped his pen, and said the words that made my stomach flip. This is identity theft, fraud, serious stuff. If you wanted, we could file tomorrow. There it was. Confirmation that I wasn't just paranoid or overreacting. They'd actually committed a crime in my name. I sat there, thinking. Part of me wanted to go nuclear, file charges, and let the cops show up at their doorstep. Imagine the look on Simon's face when Dad had to explain to the neighbors why there was a fraud case with his son's name on it. Tempting, but the other part of me knew better. If I filed right away, I'd only get one shot. They'd panic, maybe even lawyer up themselves, and it'd all spiral fast. No, I wanted leverage. So instead of pressing charges, I told my lawyer to draft something cleaner. A notice. Nothing dramatic, just a cold, professional letter giving them 30 days to refinance the mortgage in their own names and remove me from all liability. If they didn't, I'd be filing a police report for identity theft and forgery. No wiggle room, no second chances. 2 days later, that letter was sitting in my parents' mailbox. Didn't take long for the explosion to follow. First was Mom. She called me in tears, voice trembling like she'd just read my obituary. Mitchell, how could you do this to us? A lawyer? Your own family? Do you know how humiliating this is? I kept my voice flat. Not as humiliating as forging your son's signature, Mom. She gasped like I'd slapped her. We only did it to protect the family. Simon was just starting out. We couldn't let the house go. And you couldn't let me make that decision for myself? You just stole it from me instead? She had no answer, just sobbing. I let her cry into the phone for a minute, then hung up. Next was Dad. He didn't bother with tears. He called sounding like a general ready for war. Mitchell, this ends now. Do you understand me? You'll ruin the family name with this stunt. People will talk. I laughed into the receiver. Good. Let them. Maybe they'll finally know who's been keeping your roof over your head. Ungrateful, he spat. After everything we've done for you? I cut him off. You forged me, Dad. That's not something you spin as doing for me. You gambled my future for your pride. So yeah, this ends, but on my terms. He hung up on me. And then, like clockwork, Simon slid into my messages. Of course he did. The golden child couldn't resist. Dude, you're not actually going to sue your own parents, right? That's messed up. Families fight, they get over it. You're blowing this way out of proportion? I typed back one line. Try me. No emoji, no explanation. Just those 2 words. Simon left me on red. The next few days were strangely quiet. I knew they were panicking behind the scenes. Mom sent half-baked texts about talking it out and finding middle ground. Dad stayed silent, which was louder than anything he could have said. And Simon? He disappeared, probably waiting for someone else to clean up the mess like usual. Then the letter came. Not from their lawyer, but from Dad himself. A single page, typed, signed at the bottom in that stiff handwriting of his. It read like a business memo. Since I'd chosen to withdraw financial support and jeopardize the stability of the family, I was no longer to be included in any discussions about the house. That was his power move, cutting me out like I was a shareholder who didn't buy in. I sat there reading it, and instead of getting angry, I started laughing, because for the first time, it hit me. This wasn't about family anymore. It never had been. It was about control, keeping me quiet, keeping me in line, keeping me paying while Simon got to play heir to the throne. Well, that control was gone. I folded the letter neatly, stuck it in my folder of evidence, and poured myself a coffee. If they wanted a war of control, they'd picked the wrong son. And deep down, I couldn't wait for the next round. 4. I'd stopped thinking of this as family drama a while ago. This wasn't about misunderstandings or old wounds. It was about power. For years, they had it, and they used it to keep me quiet while Simon got the spotlight. Now, the balance had shifted. They knew it, and I knew it. I was sitting in my condo one night, eating takeout and skimming emails when my phone buzzed. It was Sarah, my cousin. She rarely called, so I knew it wasn't small talk. Hey, just giving you a heads up, she said, her tone cautious. Your parents are planning some kind of big banquet. Next month. They sent out invites to everyone. Extended family, neighbors, even a few business friends. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. What's the occasion? Their wedding renewal? Simon's truck blessing ceremony? She snorted. Close. They're calling it a family appreciation night. From the way your dad described it, it sounds like, well, like they're planning to make a huge deal about Simon saving the family home. For a second, I thought I misheard. Then I realized she was dead serious. Simon. Saving the home, I repeated slowly. Yeah. Sarah hesitated, then added, They asked me to help with some decorations and stuff. Honestly, Mitchell, it sounded more like a coronation than a dinner. I figured you'd want to know. I leaned back in my chair, shaking my head with a laugh that had no humor in it. Of course they were doing this. When faced with the truth, instead of admitting they screwed me over, they doubled down. They were actually going to stand in front of the entire family and rewrite history with Simon as the hero. Thanks for the warning, I said. Sarah sighed. You're not actually going to go, are you? You'd be walking straight into a circus. Oh, I'm going, I said, voice flat. Trust me, I wouldn't miss it. After I hung up, I sat there for a while, staring at the city lights outside my window. They thought they were going to throw a banquet and crown Simon the savior of the family legacy. They thought they'd sweep my contributions under the rug, just like they always had. Not this time. I pulled out the folder where I kept everything. The bank transfers, the begging texts, even copies of the forged refinance papers. I didn't need to throw it all up on a screen or plaster it across the room. I didn't need theatrics. All I needed were my words and the facts to back them up if anyone dared question me. The plan came together simple. Let Dad get up there, brag about his golden boy. Let Simon strut around like he'd carried the house on his back. And then, when the room was full of applause and admiration, I'd stand, calm as ever, and drop the truth. I pictured it in my head, over and over. The look on Mom's face when she realized the story was about to collapse. The way Dad's voice would catch when his authority got undercut in front of everyone. Simon's smug grin slipping the second he realized he wasn't the star anymore. That thought alone made me smile. In the meantime, I stayed quiet. I didn't respond to Mom's guilt-ridden messages or Dad's veiled threats. Instead, I focused on work, on my own place, on building a life that had nothing to do with them. Every day I woke up in my condo, every time I walked into my office knowing I was valued there, it fueled me. I wasn't the desperate one anymore. They were. And the best part? They didn't even know what was coming. By the time the banquet rolled around, I was ready. Not nervous, not conflicted. Ready. They wanted an audience to celebrate Simon? Fine. They'd get one. But I'd make sure that by the end of the night, everyone in that room knew the truth about who really kept that house standing. And this time, there'd be no sweeping it under the rug. 5. The night of the banquet, I walked in like I owned the place. The place was packed. Relatives I hadn't seen in years, family friends, even a couple of Dad's old business buddies. Everyone laughing, chatting, sipping drinks. At the center of it all was Simon, leaning back in his chair like some celebrity, holding court. Mom spotted me first. Her smile flickered with surprise before she rushed over, pulling me into one of those overdone hugs. "Mitchell, you made it. I'm so glad you came." "Wouldn't miss it," I said, keeping my tone flat but polite. She didn't notice the edge in my voice. She was too busy looking around, probably making sure everyone saw her united family. Dad gave me a glare from across the room. Simon didn't even bother standing. He just grinned and raised his glass like he was toasting me. I ignored them and found a seat near the back. No rush. I could wait. Dinner was served, small talk buzzed, and eventually the lights dimmed slightly. Dad stood up, tapping his glass with a fork. The room quieted. "Thank you all for coming tonight," he began, his voice carrying that practiced authority he loved to flex. "This house has been the cornerstone of our family for decades, and it's thanks to Simon, my eldest, that we've been able to keep it standing. His hard work, his dedication, his sacrifices, he has truly preserved our family legacy." Applause broke out. People clapped politely, some even cheering. Simon smirked, gave a little wave like he'd just been elected mayor. I leaned back in my chair, waiting for the noise to die down. When it did, I stood up, calm, no hesitation. "If I could have a moment," I said, my voice carrying across the room. Heads turned. Dad froze, thrown off. "Mitchell," he started, forcing a smile. "This isn't the time." "It'll just take a minute," I said, steady and clear. Dad knew what was coming. The room went quiet. You could feel the tension ripple. "I've heard a lot tonight about Simon saving the house," I began. "How his sacrifices preserved the family legacy. But since we're talking about sacrifices, maybe it's time everyone here heard the full story." I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. I held it up. "For the last 3 years, I've been making monthly payments toward this house. Not once, not twice. Every single month. Thousands of dollars. In total, $68,450, all from my account." Murmurs shot through the room. I could see relatives glancing at each other, eyebrows raised. I went on, calm as ever. "And those payments? They weren't voluntary charity. They started with a midnight phone call from Dad, panicked that the bank was about to take the house. I stepped up. I covered it. Again and again. More murmurs. Someone at the front whispered, "Is that true?" Simon's smirk cracked. "Come on, Mitchell. You don't need to." I cut him off. And just when I thought that was enough, I discovered something else. 3 years ago, when the mortgage was refinanced, my name appeared on the paperwork, with my signature. Except I never signed anything. Gasps rippled across the tables. Mom went pale. Dad's jaw locked. Dead silence now. The kind of silence that presses down on a room. Dad tried to recover, his voice low and tight. "Mitchell, that's not appropriate." "No," I said, cutting him off. "What's not appropriate is rewriting history so Simon gets applause for something he never did. What's not appropriate is stealing from your own son and then calling him half a man." I let that hang in the air. You could practically hear the blood drain from their faces. Finally, I folded the paper, slipped it back into my pocket, and looked around the room. "So if you're thanking someone tonight for keeping this house, you're looking at him." Then I sat down. The silence stretched until Sarah, bless her, gave a low whistle. "Damn!" she muttered, just loud enough for the front tables to hear. A few chuckles followed, then whispers. Then the questions started flying, not at me, but at my parents. Mom's hands were trembling as she dabbed at her face with a napkin. Dad stared straight ahead, stone-faced, refusing to meet anyone's eyes. Simon looked like he wanted to disappear under the table. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I just sat there, calm, sipping water while the room buzzed with shock. The rest of the night limped along. The energy was gone. People ate in awkward silence. Conversations hushed. Every glance toward my parents carried judgment. By dessert, I stood, thanked everyone for the meal, and left. No dramatic exit, no mic drop, just quiet confidence. Walking out into the night air, I felt lighter than I had in years. Not because I'd humiliated them, though that part was satisfying, but because the truth was finally out. They couldn't erase it anymore. They couldn't pretend I was invisible. And judging by the looks on their faces, the fallout was just beginning. 6, I didn't have to wait long. The next morning, my phone lit up with notifications like a Christmas tree. Missed calls from mom, a couple from dad, even a late-night text from Simon that just said, "Low blow, bro." That one made me laugh out loud. Low blow? Forging my signature and stealing my money was fine, but me telling the truth was apparently crossing the line. I ignored them. Let them stew. By lunch, the gossip machine was already running full speed. Sarah called me, half trying not to laugh. "Mitchell, you're the new family legend. People can't stop talking about it. Half the cousins are saying you're a hero, the other half are saying your parents looked like deer in headlights. Aunt Linda said she's never seen your dad speechless before." Good. He could use the practice. After the banquet fiasco, Dad yanked the stipend. Accounting stopped reimbursing the truck note and insurance overnight. So the company image ride turned back into what it always was, Simon's loan. No more free gloss. The whispers didn't stay contained to family. By the end of the week, Dad's precious business circle had caught wind of it. One of his longtime clients, a guy who runs a contracting supply company, called me out of the blue. "Heard about what happened at the banquet," he said, his tone careful. "Is it true? Your name was forged?" "Dead true," I said flatly. The man let out a long breath. "Figures. Always wondered how your dad kept the place running when business dried up. Guess I have my answer." A week later, Dad lost that client. Then another. Then another. His name, the one he was so desperate to protect, was turning radioactive. Nobody wanted to work with a contractor who forged his own son's signature just to stay afloat. Simon didn't fare any better. Mr. Golden Boy had built his whole identity on being the next in line, the heir to Dad's throne. Now that throne was crumbling, and so was his image. At work, people started joking about him behind his back. "Truck Boy," they called him. A guy whose only achievement was financing leather seats with his brother's credit. One of Sarah's friends even sent me a screenshot from Simon's coworkers group chat. It was a meme of Simon leaning on his truck with the caption, "Sponsored by Mitchell." I saved it. Might frame it someday. Meanwhile, my parents tried everything. Mom's texts swung like a pendulum. 1 minute. "Mitchell, you've humiliated us. Do you realize what you've done?" The next. "We forgive you. Let's put this behind us. We're still family." Dad stuck with anger. His messages were short, clipped. "You've ruined the family name. Hope you're proud." Or, "Nobody respects a man who attacks his own blood." I didn't reply to either of them. Not once. Silence became my favorite weapon. Every time they reached out and got nothing back, it was like watching them punch air. Simon, on the other hand, tried to save face. He posted some nonsense on social media about not letting negativity bring him down. The comments didn't help. People piled on with sarcastic lines like, "Keep your head up, truck boy," and "Hope your brother co-signs your next post." He stopped posting after that. While their world unraveled, mine leveled up. At work, I got tapped for a major project that I'd been eyeing for months. I threw myself into it, stayed late, delivered results. A month later, I was sitting in my boss's office being offered a raise. Not a massive one, but enough to make me smile. On top of that, my side hustle was growing faster than I expected. Word of mouth spread, and soon I had more freelance clients than I knew what to do with. My weekends were busy, but my savings account looked better than ever. 2 months after the banquet, I signed papers on a duplex. A sleek, modern building with 2 units. I moved into one, rented the other, and just like that, I wasn't just a homeowner, I was a landlord. The irony wasn't lost on me. For years, I'd been paying into a house that was never going to be mine. Now I had a property in my own name, built with my own money, on my own terms. No forged signatures, no guilt trips, no Simon. I didn't tell my parents. They found out anyway, of course, probably through Sarah or one of the cousins. Mom left me a voicemail that started with, "Mitchell, why didn't you tell us? We would have helped you move in." I deleted it before she could finish. They weren't entitled to know. Sometimes, late at night, I'd think about how fast everything flipped. 3 months ago, I was their safety net. Now they were the ones floundering while I thrived. And honestly, it felt good. Not revenge good, not petty good, just right. balanced, like the scales had finally evened out. But the real kicker came a few weeks later. I was sitting on my balcony enjoying a beer and the city skyline when I got a text from an unknown number. It was Simon. "Need a favor. Can we talk?" I stared at it, smirking. The golden child, the smug brother who'd ridden my back for years, was finally crawling to me, and I knew exactly how I was going to handle it. 7, I didn't respond to Simon's text right away. Let him sweat. For once in his life, he'd have to sit there waiting on me instead of the other way around. 2 days later, I sent him a short reply. "Come by. Tomorrow. Noon." When he showed up, the smugness was gone. He looked smaller somehow, shoulders slumped, dark circles under his eyes. The truck, the one he used to brag about nonstop, was parked at the curb, but even it looked tired, dented on one side, paint fading. He shuffled into my condo like a kid caught cheating on a test. "Hey man," he started, trying for casual, but his voice cracked. "Place looks nice. Really nice." "I cut the tour," I said, leaning against the counter. "What do you want?" He hesitated, then sighed. "Truck note's killing me since Dad cut the stipend. The condo, utilities. I thought I had it handled, but..." He spread his hands helplessly. "I can't keep up. I just need a little help. Just until things stabilize." I stared at him. This was the same guy who had laughed when Dad cut me out of the house. The same guy who told me to let it go when I found out they'd forged my name. And now, he was begging me. "You remember what Dad said?" I asked. Simon blinked. "What?" I leaned forward, smirking. "That I wasn't half the man you were." I let it hang for a beat. "Guess that makes you about a quarter of one. Figure it out." His face went red. "Come on, Mitchell. I'm serious." "So am I." I cut him off. "You wanted the spotlight, the house, the hero story? Congratulations. You can also enjoy the bills. I don't play safety net anymore." He stood there, mouth opening and closing. No comeback ready. For once, Simon didn't look like the golden child. He just looked pathetic. Finally, he muttered something under his breath and walked out. I watched from the window as he climbed into his overpriced truck, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping him together. It was satisfying, but it wasn't over. A week later, I got another knock on my door. This time, it was both of them, Mom and Dad. They looked older, more worn than I'd ever seen them. Mom's eyes were puffy, Dad's suit looked rumpled, his tie crooked. "Mitchell," Mom started, her voice soft, almost rehearsed. "We've been thinking. We want to make things right." "Is that so?" I asked, leaning against the doorway. "We want to add you to the deed, alongside Simon. It's only fair." I almost laughed. Only fair. After years of paying into a house I was never meant to inherit, after they humiliated me in front of the entire family, now they wanted to dangle it like a peace offering. "Adding me to the deed won't erase a forged loan," I said flatly. "The mortgage is still in my name. If you were serious, you'd refinance it out completely. But even then? Too late. I'm done." Their faces tightened. Mom's lip trembled. Dad's jaw clenched. "No thanks," I said simply. Mom blinked, like she hadn't heard me right. "Mitchell, please. This is our way of showing we..." "Showing what?" I snapped. "That you suddenly remember I exist? That now, when your golden boy can't handle the weight, you need me again?" Dad stiffened. "This is about family, son." "No," I said coldly. "This has never been about family. It's been about control. You forged my name, stole my money, lied to everyone, and when I exposed you, you cared more about your image than the truth. You don't get to pull the family card now." They both looked stunned. Mom's lip trembled. Dad's jaw clenched. "You can keep the house," I said, voice steady. "Give it to Simon. Sell it. Burn it to the ground for all I care. It's not my problem anymore. I've got my own place, my own life, and unlike yours, it's built on honesty." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Mom whispered, "Mitchell, please." I shook my head. "No, I'm done." I shut the door before they could answer. I wasn't half the man Simon was. I was more, and they knew it now. They'd never underestimate me again.